Walk the squawk.
Welcome to episode 5. 5 for change. Welcome to Walk the Squawk with Hazel and Alistair, the absolute legends from Prophecy Walkers. We've been having quite some trouble. If you hadn't noticed, there's been a huge delay between episode 4 and 5. We got our asses kicked by the eclipse.
Were you lucky enough to get your ass kicked by the eclipse as well, or did you completely sit in avoidance and avoid your own ascendance?
So Hazel's got a lot to get off her chest today, haven't you, Hazel?
You could call it that. I might need some guidance. Where should we start?
Okay, yeah, well, let's start with how everybody's projecting onto one another that they're not doing the work, but actually we know that we're doing the work. We've done the work and we're doing the work.
How do you know?
How do I know?
Yeah.
Because that's a good question. How do I know what that people that I'm doing that I've done the work?
That you're doing the work, done the work, and that other people aren't doing the work. How do you know? Like, how would anybody know?
Good question. So the reason I'm doing the work is because every time something comes up, I look at myself and I go, what am I doing to make that happen? And then I try and heal that within me by sitting with it or coming to you and saying, hey, look, I need to mirror this on you. What the foo-far is this? Sometimes it's obvious, but the more advanced it gets, the closer you get to fully embodying your innate soul, the more difficult it is, because the ego, I'll speak for myself, my ego, puts up these huge barriers and veils around my heart, which prevents me from feeling. And so I feel like a man who is paralyzed, dissociated, and I get very depressed. And so I then the symptoms are I start to be hard on myself. I start to lose compassion and passion for my life. And it feels like a slog. And that's what the eclipse did to me. I was doing great. And then
Yeah.
it told me to bend over, and it took a massive run up and kicked my ass. And I feel like I'm only just starting to recover. And the differences between how we work, how we do work as men and women are huge. And there's definitely more women out there doing work. And on my channel, like, this is like what, one or two, I got over 1,000 subscribers, like one or two people that are brave enough to comment. Everyone else is just terrified. And I don't understand why well, I do understand that there's so much avoidance out there, but the veil's going to be lifted soon, and the collective veil is going to be lifted soon, and people are going to be in shock.
So here's a warning. There's a heads up. Do your work now. You shall be rewarded.
Yeah, and we should talk about reward briefly.
Yeah. So let's just, before we get on, I'll make notes about what we need to talk about as we're going along, because we're so epic in how we conversate between ourselves. But just go on for a moment. Like, so you're doing the work. What would it look like not doing the work? And what does avoidance look like?
Okay. So avoidance looks like blame. Blaming others, judging others, discriminating. And it looks like not making your dreams come true. It looks like sitting on your bottom all day. It looks like continuing with a dead-end toxic job that you have. It looks like continuing the allowance of bullying in your life. It looks like putting other people's needs, including your family, before your own. It looks like believing that you know better than other people. It looks like you know you're in a toxic relationship, but you think, if I just stay in it for another round of narcissistic abuse, I'm sure I can get him to love me.
Wow. You've opened up a big can of worms here.
Oh, well, that's my specialty.
Yeah. Because
I love cans of worms.
we're just going to have to roll with this. And if anything comes up and you're like, oh, you didn't answer that question, well, drop it in the comments below after you've liked and subscribed and shared with your friends.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid of us. Because actually, yeah, don't be afraid of us. Because we've had some beautiful people contact us who are now working with us.
Privately, yeah.
Privately, through Prophecy Walkers. And, well, we've had some incredible feedback from them. Like one beautiful comment this week saying that she's evolved more in this past
1
2
month.
months.
She said more in 1 month as she has in the last, what was it?
14 years.
14 years.
Yeah. So, you know, let's just say this is part of the evidence of doing the work, right? Is that we get to be able to share this.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that comes up whilst we're chatting, because we are demonstrating how we talk through evolutionary conscious conversations through the portals of love together. That's what we're doing in Walk the Squawk. So if anything comes up and we miss it, then, you know, just put it in the chat and we'll come back to it.
Yeah, and in the future when we have got people commenting, because it's a bit pointless doing it when people aren't involved, we should do this live.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah.
But I think you touched on something which I know you're passionate about, and I want to bring in is everybody thinks that their journey is different.
Oh gosh.
But actually, there is only one journey.
Yeah. This is like breaking apart the paradox of I've got my journey, you've got your journey. Well, you're just different from me. I'm different from you. We have different opinions. And when you break all of that apart and you finally break down so intensely, you realize actually that everyone's on the same journey. It's just their story that they are attached to that makes it look different. But when you break it down energetically, which we have done, for example, you know, narcissism, you know, that's a big topic. When you break it down through all the layers and go back through the karmic lineage and reignite it from the source of love itself, everything always comes down to only 2 choices.
Love or fear.
Yeah, and it really does do that. And this is where most of people's suffering is, because they're trying to choose for love, but are so entrapped by all of the, I want to say this contagious intoxication of fear that comes through everything, that prevents you from choosing, and therefore, which is what we open this, prevents you from actually doing the work.
Okay.
And it creates a whole load of illusions. So being in the middle, which is where most of the spiritual community is, and yeah, I hold my hand up. I don't know everybody in the world. I know that. But there is a conscious vibration of the illumination of journeying through love itself, which shows you, and you can recognize. I'll claim it for myself. I can recognize this vibration of the light of love, not this transcendent love and light, this vibration of love itself in each and every human, to know where they are on their journey. And that's when you know whether people are choosing or not. And I know it's really hard to choose. It's really hard to do work. I thought I was doing the work until I had my full-on mega apocalyptic breakdown in 2020.
Well, your dark night of the soul, right?
Yeah.
Well, my dark night of the soul was about 35 years long.
Yeah.
So it can be differing for everyone.
Yeah.
Because I had a lifetime of abuse. But I want to talk about, you spoke about love, right? And
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
So I've decoded this otherwise and healed it. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to talk about it. But why is everybody afraid of love, right? The paradox of fear and love. Well, the truth is, and this is obviously all to do with ego, and I've done a video on this on my channel about what is the ego, and I completely decoded it, and it'll blow your mind if you listen to it.
Yeah.
And the problem with our current society is that over the generations, we've slowly been brainwashed into believing that love is the enemy, right? And everything has been turned upside down, inside out, and back to front, right?
Yeah.
And so when people feel shame, feel the toxic shame, like, for example, a bully bullies someone and then they get cornered and say, hey, you're a bully. They go, oh, no, I'm not. And they lash out. That's the wound of toxic shame being touched in the heart, right? And so when someone shows that person love, they react in a negative way, right?
Yeah.
And so they blame love, but it's not love, it's fear. It's the ego.
Yeah.
And the reward of receiving that love and destroying, killing the ego is you're actually doing an exchange. You're exchanging fear for love. So you got a piece of your soul back that you sold for your ego. And so the reason why people find it difficult to do the work is because they're afraid of love, because they think that love is the enemy. And I've experienced this myself numerous times where this incredible wave of love came from the universe. And I was terrified, and I started projecting that it was all these demons and stuff. And it was actually my ancestors saying, hey, we've come to help you. And I'm like, fuck off. Ah! Ah! And they're like shaking their heads, you know, like, oh my God, how are we going to get through to him? And then I completely surrendered. And I came to the conclusion that, well, what if it's love? And I surrendered, and like just tears streaming down my face, all the love I started receiving. It was quite something. And that applies to, you know, once you've unhijacked yourself from the matrix, it applies to every scare moment, every judgment, anything that stops you from being a guru, Christ consciousness, anything that prevents you from being love is your projection of the love is the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is no fear. There's only love.
Well, that's the beautiful thing, is that when you get beyond all the stories and you get that far down deep into these caverns of the heart, right, and beyond, and you're face to face with your own nemesis in a way, of that choice point of fear or love, there's no choice. Because it's really, particularly if you are on a spiritual journey, you know, and when you reach that moment, you know, you have to fully surrender who you were.
Right.
Completely.
Okay, so this episode...
Because otherwise you're still, you're still hanging on to any essence of fear. And this is why when I met you 4 years ago, I said, it's not a question of courage. It's a question of, are you ready for love now?
Yeah.
You only have to try to find courage when you haven't met that choice point yet. And when you meet that choice point, you're dead. You're done.
And so's your life.
Yeah, your life as you knew it was over. And this is why people can't do the work, let's say, because you talk about these veils or these things that you spoke about, the shame, right? When we said we kind of diagnosed it as the shame veil. One of the shame veils is people can't do the work because they've built up too much of a lifestyle for themselves, which that lifestyle in itself, built on the foundations of the old paradigm, is enough in itself for even anybody on a spiritual journey, no matter how far they've got. They might be a spiritual leader in some form or other, but they've got a house, a car, a mortgage, children. They've got a cat, a dog. They're not in a place where, if they did meet their nemesis, the fear of losing it all is so strong.
Yeah.
That most so-called leaders would not even be able to make that choice.
Yeah, so you're tapping into attachment here. You're talking about attachment, emotional attachment. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what a lot of people who are going through, who are hesitating, and hesitation kills momentum. It stops momentum. A lot of people are hesitating. People who've started to do the work are hesitating, and they're looking for a way out. And it's because of the attachments to family, to friends, to jobs. And when I first met you, you know, I was going through hell, and I decided to take responsibility for it, and I tried everything that I could to get to a good place. But I knew I just kept going with it. I kept going and kept going, and that's what you and I do. We evolve every day. We recreate ourselves as often as we can. And when I met you, I just started doing plant medicine, and um, we were we were delving into we were delving into
How to choose
yeah,
and what stands in the way.
yeah,
And we became mirrors for each other. One of the great gifts of this. And what is so beautiful about one of the many ways in which we met, because I believe we've met each other in 1,000 ways already or more, is to first meet in that humility of, I'm broken, you're broken. But actually, through that brokenness, we saw each other as whole. It was the illusion of ourselves that was
yes, yeah,
broken.
yeah. So you reminded me, yeah,
So we could see each other as souls,
yeah, okay,
and we could grow as souls
yeah,
through those cracks. It was the illusions
yeah,
that were broken.
yeah. But I lost track of what I was saying, and thank you for reminding me. What happened when I met you is you said what I'm about to tell you is going to destroy your life. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, let's go. And what happened was I had to sacrifice everything.
Hmm.
I had to, I did quit my job. You know, I'd been in finance for 18 years, and I couldn't stand it. It was a dead end job. It was a toxic job because I had something more divine waiting for me. I had to leave London. I had to, leave my toxic friends. I had to stop any toxic relationships, which included family.
Yeah,
And
big purge.
I had to give up addictions. I gave up alcohol. I gave up fast food, gave
Sugar.
up sugar, um, and started having to create my life, which was agonizing. You know, going from giving up and living a lie, essentially, which I talk about a lot, living a lie. You know, everybody's living a lie, and they don't even realize it because the wool's been pulled over their eyes. The wool, the
Mm.
veil, the shame veil, this huge amount of ignorance, which has created this cloud of suffering for everyone. And you and I feel it more than most, and we keep plowing through. And we're brave because of that. We're brave and courageous because we're saying, you know, we can do it together. And
Mm.
people are trying to do it on their own instead of together. But what I find really sad is that majority of the time, the woman is saying, "Hey, look, I'm here. I'm love. I'm here. Will you come with me, man?" And the man's like, "I'll come with you to a certain level. I'll take what I need from you, and then I'll leave and I'll find someone else." But I didn't do that with you. I had a choice point, and this is the choice point that most men fail at. They have to they have to admit the love that comes from their heart and soul, not their mind, not their
Mm.
desires, their lustful desires.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah. Lustful desires. And from the woman's part, this is where I also believe there's a lot of women who are edging towards being able to hold this deep transformation of man and woman to go into sacred union and into the new earth partnership, which is not something you could decide. You know, you know by the vibration of your own deep sacrifice and surrender, because the energy that comes through, quite frankly, well, it's taken me 4 years to integrate already. It freaking slaps you in the face like a big wet fish, big whale tail. So there's not many women, and again, I don't know everyone on the planet, but it's like what you're saying about the masculine, okay, stepping forward, the woman also has to go beyond her desires
Yeah.
of wanting
Having a
a
child.
handsome man, a man who's going to support her, having a child, doing whatever it is. And there's a truth in this essence, but through the purification process, which we've discovered, there's a truth in that essence of creation itself. But you will not get there if you still think dating is the way, if you still think writing a list and manifesting your perfect partner is the way. I can only speak from our journey. I used to do that. I manifested another narcissistic marriage based on the back of those type of manifestations.
Yeah.
And actually that was the greatest gift of all,
Yeah.
because that is the strength that I think most women, if they're honest with themselves, honest that they truly want the journey of the deep feminine and they really want to know how to find it out, well, you've got to be prepared, honey. You've got to be prepared to be shocked to the core to find out what the true essence of the deep feminine is, which is true death
Okay.
and rebirth. And you can't do that. I thought I knew that until I met you. I thought I knew that. But all that journey was doing was preparing me for the moment of losing everything.
Yeah.
And in that moment, that was when the revelations came of, oh my God, love came in not as a knowing, it came in as a holy glory of all creation. This is what love is. With the stark realization that nobody knows what love is. And that was followed by, for me, that choice point we're talking about. Hazel, are you going to choose for fear or love? By the way, Hazel, this is your destiny, to be in partnership and to choose with love. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, all of this came in. And so this is where you choose. This is the choice point.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I've realized there's a core to this conversation we're having. So we're going to call this episode Facing Your Nemesis. Okay.
Oh, nice one. Yeah.
Right. So we were talking earlier about, and you've just expanded the conversation, but the core of this is about facing your nemesis. And what does that mean? It means about facing your darkness or facing your light and coming to the center of who you are. So like the yin yang, coming in the middle to the heart and choosing to recreate yourself, choosing to accept who you are and to abandon any expectations or fear, and to accept your death will be followed simultaneously with rebirth into life.
And to trust that, yeah.
And to trust that. But how do you get to that level, right? And that's the devotion of intense purification that we're on. But you're now, you're opening up into relationships, and one of your favorite topics is narcissism. And narcissism really is part of the nemesis, right?
Yeah.
But it's not who we are. That's part of the lie, right? And so there's a darkness to accept, like I said, and a light. And sometimes they clash. We've been talking about bipolar for the past few months. We realised that my dad had that, and I've had that, but I wasn't diagnosed with it. But we've certainly discovered that it's true, and been healing that and realising that bipolar comes from a core of who rules the body, which king. It's about this rulership, the tale of two kings. And the truth is, it's the heart that rules. But when the heart isn't engaged, it creates this, it's like that old fable of these two women come to the king and say, the child is mine. The other one goes, no, it's mine. She stole it. And she goes, and the king goes, well, just cut the child in half and you both have one. And the real mother said, no, don't do that. You can have the child. And then the king knows who's the real mother. And it's a bit like that. It's a bit like that.
It is, yeah. Only the problem at the moment is there's not a responsible enough king to recognize the true deep feminine.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is I'm talking about myself, right?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about the deep feminine, then you need to internalize that for you. This is what I speak about, right? You said, how do you know if you're doing the work? Well, you internalize it.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about here is in order to save love, you sacrifice everything. And that really is what this journey of the deep feminine feels like for me.
Look, we've just opened up something here, okay?
I know, like I'm like totally activated. I
Yeah.
feel like we're in ceremony here.
Right, well, we are, because our life is a ceremony. That's
Yeah.
why we put those videos out there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do some work on you, okay?
Okay.
All right, and people are going to listen.
Right.
Get ready.
Get ready.
Okay, so you keep talking about the deep feminine.
Yeah.
But you don't talk about the light feminine, do you? Because you have judgments against it. And we discovered this the other day, Lilith, but no Eve. Where is Eve? Right?
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about Pan, but I don't talk anything about Adam, right? But we both know I've embodied my light masculine and my feminine. My light masculine and my deep masculine, but I haven't embodied my heart. So I'm on a similar but different journey to you.
You're on your journey home into the heart from the
depths.
from the from the battlefield.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, which I did in episode 18, the Woodlouse. Yeah, so of my podcast. So the light feminine, right? You're wearing the colors of the sacred warrior today. So the blue and the yellow, the light and the dark, right? Which means you're coming into wholeness, right? So you talk all the time about the deep feminine. You're obviously a mentor of the deep feminine, right? But what about the light feminine?
Right. Well, my journey at the moment is learning how to come back to life. So I'm very familiar with the deep feminine and all that journey of sacrifice. And my journey at the moment is learning how to lighten up.
Yeah.
Come into life, bud like a flower, and all of that. And to bring that depth, those deep feminine parts of myself, to bring them also. I'm also, on a pilgrimage in returning in unification into the heart. And the purification part of my light feminine has, we've gone through with the eclipse, like you said at the beginning, we have gone through some, for me, it exposed the toxic matriarchy, which is in avoidance of allowing
I can tell you what it's about if you...
the truth of love, but in a very connected way, authentic, light way that is not avoidance, transcendence.
Right, yeah. And we so when Hazel and I started our journey, it was me doing the toxic patriarchy stuff first. And we did that for 4 years, and then this year since we passed 6 months longer, we started on the toxic matriarchy, which is very invisible and is really advanced. And I wasn't able to help Hazel work on this level because it's so toxic, so dense. And we were talking about the depth of the feminine, the deep feminine, which is quite serious, very sensual, very deep feeling, feels everything. Hazel's a Pisces, which is about the ethereal, it's about water, feeling everything, the universe, etc. And the light feminine is like a sword. It's very piercing, it's a very straight line, it's very joyous and quite funny, actually, comedy. And you start to bring back your comedy, which is huge and brilliant.
I'm trying.
Yeah. And we're talking about Nemesis is here, right?
Yeah.
And so if my Nemesis was the toxic patriarchy, which most feminine will say that is theirs as well, then yours is the toxic matriarchy. And as I know it, because I've studied it and decoded it, if we say, like, if there's one main toxic distortion, a few toxic distortions that say I'll start with the toxic patriarchy and then I'll do the toxic matriarchy. The toxic patriarchy was about perversion, control and enslavement, whereas the feminine, the toxic matriarchy, is about self-righteousness, avoiding those choices that they made of guilt, and huge avoidance, of course, and also interference. Interference, which is another form of control to stop the masculine from gaining his own power. For obvious reasons, lots of stealing and sacrilege of the sacred and vice versa, but also so much hiding in the light, so much hiding in the light,
Yeah.
trying to be holier than thou. And lots of women out there saying, oh yeah, we welcome the masculine, we welcome the masculine. But when that masculine comes in and says, hey, I'm here, they're like, oh, get out of here. Get out of here. We're not ready for you.
Most women are not ready to hold this transformational vortex that is both needed for both parties.
Yeah. And because you and I have found like a kind of an energetic equality where we're not equal, but we are equal. Whereas you are a woman, you are deep and you have your own gifts, and I'm a man, and well, you're deep and high, deep and divine, sorry. And I myself, but I said to you for years, but it took us to get here. You know, just the end of last year when we were doing our work on toxic matriarchy, I said to you for years that you think you're better than me from a really deep perspective, a deep unconscious karmic connection of, because I'm a man, you look down on me.
Yeah.
And that took a long time for you to admit, right?
Yeah. From a very deep karmic perspective. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
of feminine
obviously,
versus
on a
masculine.
surface level story, I'm like, no. But that's part of the programming. And we got there ceremonially, like we're doing now, for me to actually touch into that deep vibration or that high vibration, whatever it is, to admit that.
Yeah.
And you see, this is the kind of work that you can't do if you're not both pure enough and able to sit in that alignment. You know, this is why I talk, you know, that's why I do the work with the chalice. It's like sitting there and letting all of this run through so that the truth can be shared. I really want to thank you for highlighting the toxic matriarchy within my lineage so that that karmic hold on me can be broken, but not only for me, but for that I can pass that gift on, and we can, to others that we work with. Because one of the things that I have suffered with in this journey is the covertness, you know, and this is one of the things we'll have to speak many times into narcissism. Probably as soon as I say it, you know, people don't want to hear it. But the covert, the cover up, which is in itself the shame veil, is so avoidant. And then you try to sit down and have these conversations, and that ignites the self-righteousness. No, that's not me. How dare you say that I'm like that, etc., etc. And then because of that avoidance comes the interference, that, you know, good housewife, that whoever she thinks she is, helping you, saving the day, igniting. We've been healing the helper in the toxic triangle of perpetrator, victim, and helper. We've actually been pinpointing the energy of healing that helper, which is part of the control mechanisms of the toxic matriarchy. And so I've had to be healing in order for me to ascend, let's say, but also come into this deeper union through the heart with you. I've had to come clean about these hidden parts of me, which I didn't want to admit.
Yeah.
I was the one who was victim of narcissistic abuse marriages twice.
Yeah.
I've been bullied all my life. How could I possibly be that?
Well, there you go.
But this is one of the beautiful things about how we work and how we churn and turn the tables and go into this divine washing machine so that the gold can be grasped from these places of the deep heart. And this is the strong woman. This is the strong woman who can do this and go through these portals and recognize soul to soul that we in divine partnership have a divine purpose and we hold each other through this. And this is sacred union. This is one of the gifts of sacred union.
Divine union.
Divine union. Yeah.
Same thing, right?
Yeah. And this is where you meet your nemesis.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I've finally done that. You turn another corner. Oh my God, there she is again. There he is again.
Yeah. And this pathetic war that's coming to an end in the collective of men versus women is really going to be highlighted, and people are going to have to come together. But um, as far as I'm aware, we're the only couple probably in the entire world who have achieved this level of divine union.
Yeah,
And
if
people
anybody else
are,
is out there,
wait, let me don't
sorry.
interrupt. We are talking about ascension. You mentioned ascension here. A lot of people believe you have to die in order to ascend.
Mm,
That's only true for the ego. We have
mm.
reached a dimensional level of consciousness of at least 9.
Well, that's what I keep getting shown.
Yeah, but we've also in ceremony we went. I know I personally I think I went up to 14 and I nearly lost my mind. So I'm not going up there again.
Yeah.
But my point is that this is available, and it's only available because we faced that horrible word that nobody wants to face, and it's narcissism. Because
Yeah.
narcissism is the root of all evil, and it opens up the door to the shame veil, and there's this big word behind the shame veil, and it says ignorance.
Mm.
You've been ignoring your shame, your toxic shame. You've been ignoring your responsibility, and you've been blaming it on everyone.
Yeah.
And the question is then presented to yourself. When you open that door, there's this big question that's thrown at you. What would God do?
Mm.
And the answer is he would take responsibility, he, she.
Mm. And learn how to love every single part of that fracturing.
Within first
Yeah.
and foremost.
Yeah.
And then you come out. So there's this reversal, right? The antidote to religion is that the love is inside you. The toxic religions that we have, can be beautiful, but they put love on the outside, worshipping something outside. That creates unrequited love. That creates a hole of toxic narcissism. It creates self-righteousness. It creates religious trauma syndrome. It creates grandiose narcissism, communal narcissism, even creates sexual narcissism.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
All
all
of it.
related,
Yeah.
and they all come back to these toxic roots of this upside down tree, which is the
Mm.
matrix
Mm-hmm.
of narcissism. And like I said, it all, narcissism is like springs from ignorance, because narcissism doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't move.
Yeah. And you see this so often. I see this when some women come to me for help, and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to mention the N word. And I mention the N word, narcissism, and I say, here's my course, here's what I've been through. A couple of months later, have you, how are you with getting on with the studying, the N word? And it's like, oh yeah, no, I haven't done that. And it's like, gosh, like this is your big key in,
Yeah, it's
It's your
sad.
it is sad.
Sad, yeah.
And this is one of the illusions that society also presents to us. It's like, oh, they're not that bad. Oh, I'm not that bad. Oh, nobody's that bad. Oh, I don't want to be a narcissist. He's not a narcissist. She's not. But or pointing the finger like he's a narcissist. She's a narcissist. And so you're in this toxic vortex of blame and pointing. But what we did was we sat in it.
Yeah, and said, I am a narcissist.
Yeah. We unpicked it and unpacked it through non-attachment, through the cracks of our broken hearts when we met as souls. Because when you first told me that what I was experiencing in 2020 was my ex-husband was displaying narcissistic behavior to me, and I was a victim of narcissism. My body, it was like a lead weight dropped from my heart right down into my root and cracked me open, like right into the earth, and created this chasm in which I was able to fall through. Thank goodness. And then you topped it off with, oh, by the way, I got diagnosed with narcissism. That's why I know. So can you imagine? It's like this whole me as like this whole sinking ship of my life, and that this new captain's come on board my ship and going, oh, by the way, I'm a narcissist too. And I'm like looking him in the eyes going, right, what am I going to do? I remember this moment, and my soul knew that this man in front of me was the way in, rather than running the other way.
Yeah.
I knew, only because I had only my soul guidance left, because I'd already lost everything by that point.
Yeah.
And we dove in together and said, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, this is why I'm such a great healer, and why I help clients make huge quantum leaps, because I'm the inside man.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm the
Yeah.
inside man on that
Yeah.
destroyed the toxic patriarchy within me.
Yeah, yeah.
And the answer to this podcast, who is the nemesis? Well, it's narcissism, right?
Yeah.
So facing a nemesis is facing narcissism.
Yeah. Facing narcissism in the one opposite you, within yourself, within society. This is where the merging of the I, the we, and the us comes into this one unified form of the nemesis.
Okay, right. But I'm going to go deeper with this, okay? So, because this is really important.
Yeah.
Okay. What happens when you face your nemesis? Right, it's a rhetorical question. I'm going to answer it.
How do you even know?
Listen, what happens when you face your nemesis? So the first thing that happens is your nemesis accuses you of being the nemesis. Right? And this is mirrored
Oh my God!
in society.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you overcome that?
Yeah.
How do you overcome that? I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, right? You say to your nemesis,
yeah.
You're right. You're right. I am. Because everything you've done, I'm responsible for. And then your nemesis says, I didn't expect you to say that. I think I can accept my role now that you have accepted yours. We can shake hands now. And we can exchange the keys that we've been hiding from each other.
Great visuals on this.
Yeah. And so this is the bridge. This is the heart. Right? We're working in the heart right now. Right now as I'm speaking on this podcast. We are in the heart.
Deep heart.
Deep in the heart.
That touches the solar
plexus. She's getting deeper. Right, just relax. Just relax. Right. So love. This is sacred matrimony.
Yeah.
This is the true meaning of inner marriage and divine union between, I'm just speaking for myself, not speaking for you, between my darkness and my lightness.
Yeah.
Right? My depth, my lightness, my joyfulness, my sensuality, my sexuality, and my genius. All of these things are multidimensional, non-directional, all the colours and none of the colours. Yeah. Inside, outside, upside down, inside out, you name it, right? And when you completely surrender and accept that you are everything and you are responsible for being a complete dickhead, speaking again, I'm speaking for myself, just bringing in a bit of humour. And to myself, being a dickhead to myself, right? Really, I've been horrible to myself because I took responsibility. That I can forgive myself and accept that there is something different available on that bridge now, because that's not been done before for me.
Mm.
And that exchange is really, it's like it's friendship, it's peace, it's joy, it's depth. It's something that I haven't quite grasped yet because it's so divine. And so what happens when you face your nemesis and you come to peace? Alchemy.
Mm. It's the simultaneous death and life moment.
Yeah, I want to say restitution. It's the word that comes up, restitution.
Wow.
Right. And so it's all good and well saying people aren't doing the work, right? But everything is mirrored. I say this all the time and I still don't think people get it. Is that oneness is about mirror work. Everything is mirror. Everything you say to someone or anything is mirrored back at you. Like I remember I threw a pan against the wall one time and I realized I was just throwing myself against the wall because it felt terrible for the rest of the day. It took me years, decades to realize that that's how life works. If you treat something with disrespect, you're only treating yourself with disrespect because you're only talking to yourself.
It's where you break you
Break the fourth wall.
yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. It's where you jump off the karmic loop and come into life.
Oh, karma. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
And there's unification between black and white. It's like the yin yang, the I Ching. And through that unification, it really unlocks all the colours. This is what we've witnessed for years. Well, yeah. But I mean, we've only just found out about that. But this is what started happening over 4 years ago. Unknowing that this was what was happening. The unlocking, the decoding through the unification and the unlocking of the true body. I want to say the true body of Christ,
Yeah.
and all the colours that are illuminated through that.
That reminds me, I need to make some bread.
the deep rainbows and the divine rainbows and that unification. Oh, you've just sort of blown my mind, really. Every time we do this, it's another transmission for us.
Yeah.
Really. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I could see that you needed a bit of healing. So I know you've been having a tough day, and I could see that that you're also in a similar way, but a different way, going through what I'm going through, which is you're trying to find your center, trying to find your inner belief because you're looking for it outside of you. You're looking for people to take you seriously and to listen. And there's so many people out there who just aren't willing to listen because they don't understand your vibration. They can't feel your vibration because it's so pure. Yeah. And it's so big. Yeah. And when you're stood in the sun, it's just, I use this analogy. If you're a being, if you're the sun, just pretend you're the sun, and somebody comes into the sun, and there's someone that can read energy. They go, I can't see your energy. You go, that's because you're in it.
Yeah.
I'm the sun. Yeah. And they're like, but you can't be because I'm not. I can't be, but you can be. It's just I've done the work.
They start getting a bit hot under the collar.
You're too bright for me. Yeah. You're too bright. I need to take some steps back.
Yeah, like hold on.
I'm going to go back to Pluto.
Yeah.
You're too bright. Yeah. It's cold back there.
Yeah, and that's why I find that people, there's a judgment here maybe or whatever. It's like, no, it's difficult to get the message across. It's just like, it's love, right?
Yeah, but what does love mean?
Well, this is the thing, is like when I spoke earlier about this breakdown that I had, and then I was shown through whatever consciousness you want to call it, I was shown vibrationally what love was, but I wasn't shown what love was as like, oh right, this is what love is, and then a few words given. I was shown what love was through vibration.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I've said this to a few people and they're like, well, what is love then? And I'm like, it's here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a
Okay.
vibration. Are you ready? Are you ready for it? And so then this is where it's very difficult to like, after you've killed yourself in your whole life and you've sort of destroyed everything that you've ever worked for, almost. Where's the authority? Well, I have the inner authority to know that I am love, but it triggers the foo-far out of people.
Yeah. Well, let me talk into what is love, okay?
Yeah.
Because I used to have this problem as a man, you know, constantly being told by women, just open your heart. I'm like, I would if I knew how to. Because I was so, you know, excuse me, lifetime of trauma,
Yeah.
shut down heart, completely paralyzed in fear and dissociated. And it's taken me a long time to reclaim my senses, and it's not something that happens overnight. But we're talking about here about facing your nemesis, and we're talking about mirror work, right? So if the
Yeah.
nemesis is narcissism, what's love, right? So to a lot of people, love is a nemesis.
Yeah. It also is, in a way.
Well, yeah, it's the nemesis of the opposite of love. You know, it's the nemesis of fear. You could say, right? It's God's shadow, and so there has to be peace.
Yeah.
There has to be a coming together. There has to be alchemy. There has to be coexistence.
Yeah.
And the only thing that stops that is the great separation, which is the ego. Right. And what happens when you remove the ego, you come into a complete remembrance. This is it. I'm just decoding this now, right? So I've said this in my video about the collective dark night of the soul, that the ego is the Akashic records, right? So if you line up all the books, what happens? The light shines through. You know, they're not paper books. They're like, let's just say they're spiritual books, glass books, right? Like a prism. You shine the light through them, all the colours come through. Yeah. And then you shine in all directions. You become the rainbow sun. You become the rainbow donut. You become the divine gateway, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah. Gosh, you've described it so beautifully.
Thank you. So, but to ground it for people, what is love? Love, if you understand it, is anything that brings you joy. It could be a name like Alistair or Hazel. That's a form of love, right? It could be this red cup here. That's love. But the opposite of love would be, do you want to go outside today because it's a beautiful day? And I'm like, no, I'm too cold. That's fear. That's not love. Embracing life is love, right? And so it's about understanding where your resistance is to love, and then you can start to feel what is love.
Yeah. Oh, you're really knife edge every time.
Mic drop.
Boom.
Boom.
Did you get through the eye of the needle? Because it was a bit of a squeeze for me.
Yeah.
But I think about we just got there. Wow, amazing.
I think it'd be good to end there because that's quite a lot of.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's that's a big love bomb right there. I just want to finish, like, when you were talking and I was having the visualization when you were talking about the Nemesis meeting on the bridge. I was like, boom, like that is where you get the bomb drop. Like that is where the explosion of love happens, in that unification. So thank you as we meet ourselves, our soul and our Nemesis meet on the bridge, the rainbow bridge of new creation.
Yeah, a whole.
Let that be known. So yeah, like and subscribe, check out our work, you know, do whatever it takes.
Listen, don't listen.
Follow, don't follow. Be your own genius and take yourself into the next realms of your own creation. Yeah, be the greatest guide that you ever were before. And if you need a bit of help for that, well, we're here. So get in touch.
Yeah, prophecywalkers.com.
Yeah, lots of love and bye for now.
Ciao.
Like, subscribe.
Like.